the night 22-year-old Elliot Rodger went on a rampage.
And then he lifted up a little black pistol and I just thought it was an airsoft gun or something. So I was like, hey, what up? And I turned around and I started walking the other way.
That walk turned into a run for her life after more shots were fired at her. The night of the shooting, Swartz was walking down the street back to her house just a block away. That's when she saw the black BMW drive up beside her with Rodger in the driver's seat. She didn't know 6 people had already been killed when the gun was pointed at her.
On May 23, 2014, Sierra Swartz was walking home with her friend Hannah Miller, chatting and enjoying the California night. Suddenly, she heard loud bangs erupt in the air. First, she thought they were just fireworks, which is a common thing in Isla Vista. But as she turned around to talk to her friend, she noticed her sprinting in the opposite direction. Almost immediately, a black BMW pulled up beside her, and a seemingly normal guy asked her, "What's up?" Swartz replied with, "What's up, but something feels off." Then, in a split second, everything changed. The guy pulled out a gun, and at first she thought it was a soft gun, but as a grin creeped across his face, he shot at Sierra twice. Sierra felt the wind of the bullet whiz past her head. This is the chilling story of Sierra Swartz, and what she hadn't realized yet was that her experience wasn't unique that night. But who was the man behind the wheel, and what fueled his rage? Through Sierra's story and the accounts of those who witnessed the events that day, we will delve into the mind of a killer and the events that shattered a California college town. Before the terror, before the headlines, there was Elliot Rodger, a young man whose life was marred by loneliness, frustration, and a darkness lurking within. Elliot Oliver Robertson Rodger was born on July 24, 1991, in London, England. From a young age, Elliot struggled with social interactions and felt isolated from his peers. His parents divorced when he was young, and he moved to the United States with his mother and sister. Despite his privileged upbringing, Elliot's early years were marked by a profound sense of alienation. He attended prestigious schools, but found it difficult to connect with classmates. As he entered adolescence, his struggles with socialization intensified, fueling feelings of inadequacy and resentment. Diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome at a young age, Elliot faced additional challenges in navigating social situations. His condition, coupled with a history of anxiety and depression, compounded his sense of isolation and contributed to a deteriorating mental state.
Tomorrow is the day of retribution. The day that I will finally be able to have my revenge against humanity.
In the years leading up to the tragedy, Elliot's online presence offered glimpses into his troubled mind. He posted videos and wrote extensively about his struggles with loneliness, rejection, and a perceived lack of success with women. His writings often betrayed a sense of entitlement and resentment toward those he felt had wronged him. His internet history also showed lots of Nazi-related searches, as well as ways to stab people in the months leading to the attack. On May 23, 2014, Elliot Rodger's pent-up rage and despair boiled over in a rampage that shocked the world. His meticulously planned attack targeted the streets of Isla Vista, California, leaving 6 innocent people dead and many more injured before he took his own life. But before we delve into the horrors of that night, let's rewind to a seemingly ordinary evening at the Alpha Phi sorority house, where the first shots of Elliot Rodger's rampage would ring out. Megan Gibson, a resident of the Alpha Phi sorority house, remembers the moment vividly. It started at about 9:15 p.m. with aggressive knocking at the front door, which went on for several minutes. This was unusual, even for a bustling college town like Isla Vista, and it sent shivers down the residents inside. Moments later, the tranquility of that Friday night was shattered by the sound of gunshots, followed by screams of terror. The gunshots were targeted towards Bianca DeCock and her 2 friends, Catherine Cooper and Veronica Weiss, who happened to be walking just outside the sorority. DeCock remembers a car slowing down as if it was going to park, and as she peered into the vehicle, she heard several gunshots and felt pain due to being hit by gunfire.
I see his face, he smiles at me, and just starts shooting. And then I realize I'm bleeding, I'm in pain.
Bianca was hit 5 times, bullets piercing and grazing her body.
Kyle Sullivan, who happened to be passing nearby on Cordoba Road, was drawn to the scene by the rapid gunfire and desperate screams. As he approached, he was met with a harrowing sight. 3 young women, Bianca DeCock, Catherine Cooper, and Veronica Weiss, lying wounded on the sidewalk. DeCock was thankfully conscious and was calling her mother, but Cooper showed no signs of life. Weiss struggled to breathe, the terror of the situation etched on her face. At this point, a call to 911 had already been made, and Deputy Genovese, responding to the reports of gunfire, arrived at the scene to find chaos and carnage. Witnesses rushed to him, pleading for help as they grappled with the gravity of the situation. However, the sorority house shooting was just a phase of Elliot Rodger's deadly rampage, as detailed in his more than 130-page autobiographical manuscript, which he called My Twisted World. But more on that later in the video. After the horrific events at the sorority house, Elliot Rodger wasn't finished. Fueled by his twisted plan, he sped through the streets of Isla Vista, searching for more victims. He fired a shot into a coffee shop, thankfully empty at that late hour, but his rage wouldn't be contained, so he continued down towards the deli he usually frequents.
So I knew him when he comes in. I say, "Hi, Elliot, what do you like?" And, he will pay, and very kind.
Jessica Castaneda, who was standing with a group of friends outside the IV Deli Mart, heard the loud noise coming from the coffee shop, but she first thought it was fireworks, because she didn't know what a gunshot sounded like. However, one of her friends thought it sounded like a gunshot and encouraged everyone to get inside for safety. As everyone was running into the store, Michaels Martinez, who was part of the group standing outside, turned around to get a look at Elliot's vehicle since it was directly in front of him. As soon as he turned, tragedy struck. Elliot shot him directly in his chest, but he was able to run into the store where he fell to the ground. However, Elliot was not done. He continued firing shots into the store, sending broken glass everywhere before speeding away. Miraculously, no one else was seriously injured. The terror wasn't over yet. Elliot Rodger descended further into madness, and his attack took a gruesome turn. Pedestrians walking the street of Isla Vista became unwitting targets of his relentless fury. At 9:30 p.m., Jin Fu found himself in the path of Elliot Rodger's dark BMW. As the gunfire echoed through the streets, Jin Fu, a young student, was simply walking home. He heard what sounded like fireworks, not uncommon in Isla Vista, but the danger was far more real. Elliot Rodger's car screeched towards him. Fu, who was innocently walking across Embarcadero del Norte, was blindsided by the speeding vehicle. Despite his desperate attempt to evade the oncoming car, he was struck with such force that his body was sent flying through the air. Summer Young bore witness to the chaos unfolding around her and, determined to protect the injured pedestrian, she escorted Fu to safety at Woodstock's Pizza, an oasis amidst the chaos where they sought refuge from the horrors unfolding in the streets. Young claims Elliot Rodger deliberately swerved his car to hit Fu, but miraculously, Jin Fu only suffered minor injuries. As the night wore on, the streets of Isla Vista became a battleground, a scene of chaos and terror as Elliot Rodger's rampage continued unabated.
Every time I drive through this place, I am overcome with rage, because I see so many guys walking around with beautiful blonde girls, while I've lived here for more than 2 years in loneliness. No one's ever invited me to parties, no girls have been attracted to me. I've never had the pleasure of walking through this town with a beautiful girl on my arm.
At 9:30 p.m., Aaron Zaglin and Bailey Maples found themselves in the crosshairs of Elliot Rodger's relentless assault. Exiting Pizza My Heart, they were met with the chilling sight of a dark sedan speeding towards them. Zaglin and Maples, caught off guard by the sudden attack, were left reeling as gunfire erupted around them. Zaglin, struck in the arm, and Maples, grazed by a bullet, fled in terror, seeking refuge from the violence consuming the streets. Amidst the chaos, Megan Carlotto, a young woman simply riding her bike, became another target. She heard what she thought were fireworks, a sound tragically familiar in Isla Vista that night. Struck by a sudden, searing pain in her leg, Carlotto's initial confusion turned to panic as she realized she had been shot. Fear gripped her as she realized the true nature of the sounds. With adrenaline pumping, she sought refuge at the nearby 7-Eleven convenience store, where they hid in the bathroom and waited for assistance. In the unfolding chaos, law enforcement scrambled to contain the situation. Deputy Marquez, responding to reports of gunfire, found himself in the path of the shooter. He was on patrol, trying to locate the shooter, when suddenly, the sound of gunfire erupted. The suspect's car sped past, and Deputy Marquez realized he was under fire. With courage and determination, Deputy Marquez engaged the shooter, the first law enforcement officer to confront Elliot Rodger. Meanwhile, on a seemingly ordinary street, Patrick Eggert and Nicholas Pasachuk were simply riding a skateboard and a bike, having a conversation about surfing. Then, without warning, their peaceful night took a terrifying turn when Elliot Rodger's car slammed into them from behind. Witnesses who were nearby claimed that Elliot's vehicle initially slowed down, but turned toward Eggert and Pasachuk and gunned it. With a deputy fired upon and innocent people struck down, the urgency to stop the shooter grew. But Elliot was constantly on the move, not staying in one place for more than a minute, and was on the hunt for his next victim. Christopher Hong was simply walking home after getting something to eat at the nearby 7-Eleven store. After walking for about 1 block, he heard what sounded like gunshots, which, like most other people, assumed were fireworks. Suddenly, a black BMW screeched to a halt and the driver pulled up a gun. Fear surged through Hong as he realized that what he had heard was not fireworks, but gunshots. He bolted for cover in a nearby house, but it was too late. He was shot. The people who were inside the house applied pressure to Hong's wounds until paramedics came and took him to the hospital. Skateboarding along Sabado Tarde, Garcia and his housemate, Donovan Guranilla, thought the night was like any other, so they headed out for food. Suddenly, a black BMW swerved towards them. Garcia didn't realize the danger until it was too late. He was struck by the car and thrown into a parked vehicle, his hand and leg bearing the scars of the violent encounter. Fear and confusion swirled. Was the guy drunk? Garcia's initial instinct was to follow the car so that he could confront the driver, but he quickly witnessed another horrifying act that made him reconsider his options. Garcia watched in horror as Elliot shot another skateboarder in the back and ran over his legs. On another street, Mitchell Lubarski was just trying to get home on his bike. He noticed a commotion near the 7-Eleven convenience store and thought a fight had just happened. As he came near the store, a woman with a gunshot wound was what was fueling the crowd's panic. Suddenly, a black BMW appeared, speeding down the wrong side of the road. Lubarski had no time to react. The car slammed into his bike, throwing him to the ground. He watched in horror as the car quickly accelerated and did the same to another cyclist just ahead of him. Arun Sengupta, another witness, initially unsure of the sounds he heard, decided to run to a friend's house just in case. However, he found himself caught in the unfolding nightmare, narrowly avoiding being hit himself. The driver's intent was very clear: to cause harm. Lubarski, shaken but alive, found Sengupta, and together they sought refuge in a nearby house. Elliot Guy and his friend were just enjoying a skateboard ride when they witnessed the chaos unfold. They saw the BMW slam into Lubarski. Guy, thinking the driver was drunk, tried to record the license plate. A fatal mistake. The car immediately swerved towards him, clipping his leg. Convinced that the driver was drunk, Guy kept chasing after the car as it sped towards another unsuspecting victim. But he soon found out that the driver wasn't drunk. He was deadly. Guy saw the BMW approach someone from behind and shot them several times in the back. The person was later confirmed to be Antoine Churchain. Meanwhile, Matthew Smith and Antoine Churchain were simply walking down the street when they found themselves in the wrong place at the wrong time. The now familiar black BMW screeched to a halt in front of them, and without warning, the driver opened fire, striking both Smith and Churchain. Smith, shot at and wounded, made his way towards his friend's house where he received aid from the residents who called for help. Churchain, who at first didn't notice he had been shot, but as soon as he saw blood gushing from his injury, collapsed to the ground. Erdian, who was skateboarding close to Churchain, rushed to him and used his belt as a tourniquet to stop the bleeding. He then dragged Churchain up a driveway and requested assistance from bystanders. With the suspect's identity and vehicle description broadcasted, law enforcement officers swiftly moved to intercept the fleeing perpetrator. In the heart of the action were Sergeant Welch, Detective Flick, Deputy Walker, and Deputy Johnson, stationed near Little Acorn Park. As the suspect's black BMW raced past them, brandishing a pistol, the situation escalated dramatically. Fearing for their lives and the safety of others, the deputies returned fire. The intensity of the encounter is reflected in the sheer number of shell casings recovered from the scene, 28, evidence of the deputies' determined efforts to neutralize the threat. The exchange of gunfire left its mark. Elliot's car was hit, and he was wounded. but he managed to escape. Elsewhere, Senior Deputy Smith was setting up a crime scene when he heard the commotion and raced towards the scene. While driving, he heard that Elliot's had just crashed near the intersection of Del Playa and Camino Pescadero. Within seconds, Senior Deputy Smith had arrived at the crash site and found Elliot's car on a sidewalk. The BMW had sustained heavy damage after colliding with a parked car. By the time Senior Deputy Smith had arrived, the car's front door had already been opened and the deputy could see Elliot sitting motionless in the driver's seat, a gunshot wound visible. Officers carefully removed the suspect from the vehicle. The initial fear was replaced with a grim realization. A weapon was found next to the suspect, along with a bag containing additional ammunition. The evidence painted a chilling picture of the shooter's deadly intent. The scene was secured as a painstaking investigation began. The nightmare was finally over, but the scars remained. As law enforcement officers raced against the clock to unravel the motives behind the tragic events, startling revelations emerged, shedding light on the suspect's dark intentions and raising urgent concerns for the safety of others. At around 10:45 p.m., Sheriff CID Detective Sergeant Sanders held a briefing and started assigning tasks to other detectives. Detective Schmidt was tasked with answering the why question. His first task was contacting Detective Aarons, who had been speaking with Elliot's mother only a few minutes before. Behind the facade of normalcy, a disturbing truth began to surface. Elliot's mother, Chin Rodger, shared chilling details with Detective Aarons, painting a picture of a troubled young man with ominous plans. She was worried for her son after Elliot's life skills coach, Gavin Linderman, contacted her regarding an emailed manifesto he had received earlier that day. The manifesto was from Elliot, and it detailed his desire to carry out a violent attack. Chin also heard there was a shooting in Isla Vista and was concerned that her son might have some involvement. Based on the information he was able to gather from Detective Aarons, Detective Schmidt requested a welfare check for the other roommates in Elliot's apartment. At approximately 11 p.m., the detective reached out to Senior Deputy Gottschall, who was a member of the Sheriff's Special Enforcement Team, SET Squad, and requested him to prepare for a protective sweep of Elliot's apartment to check on his roommates. About an hour later, the SET arrived at Elliot's apartment, but the door was locked. However, there was a concern that Elliot had rigged the apartment with booby traps or other unknown hazardous conditions. This concern was raised after detectives who were assigned to Elliot's manifesto found some shocking details. More on the manifesto later. With everything secured, the SET had a peek of the room inside by removing a window screen, which allowed Senior Deputy Gottschall to open the window. What he saw inside bolstered the entire team into action. After opening the window, Senior Deputy Gottschall was able to determine the room was a bathroom, and right there on the floor was the deceased body of a man who was later identified as George Chen. Due to this discovery, SET quickly breached the front door and gained entry into the apartment. The team performed a protective sweep of the apartment and found 2 more bodies inside one of the bedrooms. The 2 bodies were Wei-Hen Wang and Cheng Hong, who were Elliot's roommates. 20 minutes later, the protective sweep was over and marked the last victims of Elliot's rampage to be discovered. The following morning, a search warrant for the apartment was served, allowing forensics detectives and crime scene technicians access to the apartment. According to the forensic evidence collected at the scene, Wei-Hen Wang was the first to be murdered on that fateful day. His body was found deep inside his bedroom, covered under a layer of blankets and clothing, and it was evident that Wang was targeted and hidden from view. Cheng Hong's position next to Wang, with his foot on top of Wang's body, suggests he was the second victim. His backpack, still strapped on, hints that he was likely ambushed when he entered the apartment or the bedroom they shared with Wang. And George Chen, a concerned friend, tragically stumbled into the heart of danger. His unanswered calls to Wang paint a picture of concern turned to horror as he met his demise in the bathroom, mere steps away from his friend's bedroom. Police assume he was likely the last victim to be murdered in the apartment. Apparently, Elliot was not close to his 2 roommates and had even gone as far as reporting Cheng Hong to the police for stealing his candles. Hong was later booked into Santa Barbara County Jail for petty theft. The investigation turned its focus to the suspect's apartment, searching for clues into his actions. The state of the room itself offered a glimpse into a disturbed mind with signs of preparation and obsession. Elliot's laptop, which had been left open on top of his bed, revealed a chilling detail. On display was a YouTube page featuring a screenshot from the suspect's chilling retribution video, and a notification confirming the upload was successful. In the video, he outlines his planned attack and the motive behind his actions.
On the day of retribution, I'm going to go into the hottest sorority house of UCSB and slaughter every single blonde, stuck-up slut I see inside there. All of those girls who I've desired so much all my life. All those girls who would just look down upon me as an inferior man. They would reject me if I ever made a sexual advance towards them. Oh, they will all pay for their rejection of me. When I slaughter all of them, they will see that I am in truth the superior one. The true alpha male.
He also claimed that he wanted to punish women for rejecting him. Sexually active men were not left out because he was basically envious.
I've suffered all my life while you've had so much fun and pleasure. I will make you all suffer just as I have.
Physical evidence within the room suggested a horrifying possibility. The suspect may have practiced his attacks. The fitted sheet bared slash and stab marks, which bore witness to Elliot's macabre rehearsals. Bloodstained clothing and pillows found on the bed further connected Elliot to the violent crimes, but it was the suspect's digital footprint that sent shivers down the spine. The sheriff's high-tech crimes unit uncovered a disturbing internet search history, revealing a descent into darkness and obsession. From tutorials on silent knife kills to researching historical atrocities, each query offers a glimpse into the suspect's troubled psyche. Themes of violence, Nazism, and isolation intertwine, painting a disturbing portrait of his descent into madness. Investigators delved into two of Elliot's personal handwritten journals, searching for clues into his motivations. Within the pages of these journals lies a descent into darkness, chronicling the suspect's obsession with wealth, status, and his disturbing fixation on obtaining a girlfriend at any cost. The entries paint a haunting picture of Elliot's warped fantasies, fueled by the belief that material wealth and luxury would finally earn him the affection of women. His obsession with the lottery, fueled by dreams of opulence and sexual conquest, only served to deepen his despair as each loss drove him further into madness. Elliot wrote the following about what his life would be like if he won the lottery. I will be able to fully indulge in everything I'm passionate about. Exotic cars, luxurious mansions, expensive clothes, and of course, sex with beautiful girls. I will drive a Maserati and a Lamborghini, and when girls see me in those cars, they will all want to date me. They will finally see me as the supreme man that I'm meant to be. When I purchase a huge, beautiful mansion and take girls to it, they will be in love. I just know it. Once all this comes to fruition, I will finally lose my virginity. I will be able to have sex. Sex, sex, sex. Elliot Rodger purchased lottery tickets on several occasions, but he never won, and this caused him to become more agitated. After the repeated losses, he learned later that the Powerball lottery jackpot was in excess of $500 million. This lottery wasn't available in California at the time, so he drove to Arizona and spent $100 on tickets. After finding out that he didn't win the Powerball lottery, he wrote in his journal, entry dated December 1st, 2012. The suspect purchased his first pistol 3 days later on December 4th, 2012. All my hopes, all my dreams, shattered. On April 3rd, 2013, Elliot wrote that he made 4 trips to Arizona to play the lottery. He was defeated after losing. The suspect wrote, "Revenge is all I have to live for." A few days later, on April 11th, 2013, he wrote that girls deserve the most punishment because they choose other men and deny him. Elliot blamed his virginity on girls because they were denying him sex. On June 3rd, 2013, the suspect wrote about exacting revenge on women, and how sweet and just it would be to kill every single young couple at my college or in Isla Vista. He then referred to this as the Day of Retribution, a name he had thought of a couple of years ago. But it was the suspect's manifesto that laid bare the depths of his depravity. In a chilling 137-page document, he outlined his twisted plan for the Day of Retribution, a meticulously planned onslaught of violence aimed at those he perceived as responsible for his suffering. His manifesto detailed a plan of attack with 3 phases of escalating violence: the murder of his roommates or any other victims he could lure into his apartment, a war on women targeting the Alpha Phi sorority house, and a rampage rampage through Isla Vista, leaving death and destruction in his wake. He wrote that he would shoot anyone he was not able to crash into. The first phase was what had caused the SAT to believe that Elliot might have rigged his apartment. He had written that he was going to use his apartment as a personal torture and killing chamber. He described that he would lure people into his apartment, knock them out with a hammer, slit their throats, and behead them once they died. Page 132 of My Twisted World. Apart from the detailed plans for his retribution, the manifesto also talked about his childhood, family conflicts, his inability to find a girlfriend, his hatred for women, and his contempt for couples, especially interracial couples. As we peel back the layers of this tragic story, we uncover a complex tapestry of missed opportunities and warning signs. From a violent altercation to concerning mental health records, each piece of the puzzle offers insights into the troubled mind of Elliot Rodgers. On July 20th, 2013, Elliot's frustration boiled over in a violent confrontation at a party in Isla Vista. His attempts to socialize ended in anger when no one was interested in talking to him. In his anger, he tried to push some people off a ledge. This didn't go as he planned, and instead he left with a fractured ankle and a bruised ego. In the journal entry for this day, he said he was specifically targeting girls, but was not able to push anyone off the ledge. Less than a year later, Chin, Elliot's mother, was concerned over his recent posts online and requested a welfare check by law enforcement. The request was based on disturbing videos that Elliot had posted on YouTube. During this welfare check, Elliot did not show any signs of being or make any statements indicating that he was a danger to himself or others. In retrospect, this was one of several examples of Elliot's ability to present a normal effect when interacting with others. At the conclusion of the interview, the deputies felt that Elliot did not meet the criteria of California Welfare and Institutions Code 5150A that would have allowed them to involuntarily take the suspect into custody for a period of up to 72 hours for a mental health assessment, or that cause existed to take any further investigatory actions. With the welfare check behind him, Elliot's online activities continued to paint a troubling picture of obsession and resentment, and based on his financial history, a chilling timeline of preparation emerged. From the initial purchase of a firearm to the final moments before the tragic events of May 23, 2014, each transaction served as a stark reminder of the calculated planning behind the senseless acts of violence. In December of 2012, the suspect took his first step towards the unthinkable, acquiring a Glock 34 pistol. This ominous transaction marked the beginning of his descent into darkness, as he meticulously plotted his deadly rampage. Over the course of the next year and a half, Elliot's financial records reveal a pattern of escalating purchases related to firearms and shooting practice. Each purchase was accompanied by frequent visits to shooting ranges, indicating that Elliot was attempting to hone his skills. However, in his final moments before carrying out the attack, his final purchase was eerily calm, a simple cup of coffee, which stood in stark contrast to the violence he was about to unleash. The tragedy caused by Elliot Rodger's actions deeply affected the community, resulting in loss of life and ongoing pain for those involved. This incident teaches us important lessons about spotting warning signs, supporting mental health, and handling guns responsibly, even in places with strict laws like California. Despite getting treatment for mental health issues since he was young, Rodger was still able to legally buy guns, showing gaps in the system. To prevent future tragedies, laws have been changed to help police check gun registries during welfare visits and allow temporary gun confiscation in risky situations.